Broadcasting from New Braunfels, Texas, home of the historic Green Hall and the best river tubing in America. You're listening to PX1 Sports Radio, where we cover the hottest topics in the sports gaming world and the world of sports entertainment. Here's your host, Mike Peters.
What's up, sports gamers? Welcome to the inaugural episode of PX1 Sports Radio. We are excited to be here, and we are excited to have you listening. For those of you that have followed us along with our Madden coverage, we hope this is a natural extension of that, and you will find more great stuff from us. As you heard Jeremy mention in the opening, we will be covering the world of sports gaming and sports entertainment, so lots of good stuff coming along the way. Our opening episode, we have a really special guest in Chris Gunther, also known as MillenniumOS from Operation Sports, a big player in the sports gaming community. So really excited to have him on and get going. So let's get started. Thanks for being here. Definitely appreciate you being on and stopping by to give us your insights. Let's jump right into it. What do you think is the state of Madden right now?
Currently, I think Madden is in a good place. It's the best Madden, bar none, right now ever in comparison to other games. I know a lot of people have compared it to 06, 05, those kind of games, but I think it plays the best game of football we've ever seen. That's not without drawbacks. I think we would love to see a more natural pass rush, just offensive line play in general. But in terms of where they are development way and just overall with like things like the Madden Classic, the Madden Bowl coming up, I think they're in a really good place to make some larger steps in the next couple of years.
You know, it's one of the things that I think a lot of people kind of get lost on is they focus on the negatives and they find, you know, the flaw here and there, and they kind of forget about where we've come. I haven't gone back and played Madden 05 since it came out. So what is it, 12 years now? And I still consider it, you know, the best Madden of all time. But I bet if we put that game in and we compared it to the things that we have today, we would probably be blown away with how far we've come. I've actually gone back and put in Madden 16, and I was kind of blown away with how far we come. And that's definitely one of the things that I think gets lost in, you know, the people who are trying to compare Madden to where it was and stuff like that, is you really kind of lose that perspective on all the improvements and stuff that they make from year to year.
Well, yeah, and that's, again, something people need to understand at times is this game is light years ahead of where it was. This specific development team has done things that we've been asking for years, but because they get done, we're always looking for, well, what's next? And you're right. There are people, myself included, sometimes I get hung up on the negatives when you really should just say, you know what, this game does a lot. I'm enjoying this game a ton right now on default all-pro against the computer in my franchise. And that was something that took a lot for me to remember. To remember that, you know, this game is really good. Sometimes you just got to let some of the little stuff go to enjoy it. And ever since I did that, I'm happy. I'm good to go.
I think that's a good point to make for a lot of people out there. Sometimes you can get so focused on the things that are bad. And I actually had a playoff game recently where I did that. It was just kind of like a string of things went against me, and I wasn't even winning close to my share of 50-50 balls. And it's in the playoffs, and I'm just like, oh my God, I hate Madden right now. But I think if you try to keep that perspective, you know, if you know that it's going to balance out for you eventually, your opponent's going to face that same kind of game eventually. If you try to, you know, look at the things that they've done better as far as, you know, the pass rush and the different zones, I mean, cover 3 match and stuff like that has been a huge addition. You know, you focus on those things, it really helps you to enjoy the game more. And that's actually one of the things that has been brought up a lot of times in the Madden community is that sometimes I think people look too much at what the game doesn't have or what it could improve on, and they kind of lose the enjoyment of what it actually is right now. Is that kind of, you know, what you're going along there, what you're thinking with that line?
Yeah, definitely. Same experience. I mean, you never want to forget that we still need to give constructive feedback to make it better. I mean, the game is where it is not only because of the dev team, but because of constructive community feedback. That's a huge part of making these games better. That being said, at times you just have to enjoy gaming. Like, there's so many good games out right now, Madden included, so many good sports games this year. Sometimes you have to sit back and sometimes it's like they say, sometimes you're going so fast, you're looking at everything else, you forget to smell the flowers. And the flowers are right there in this Madden to smell on how good it is. Yeah, some of the petals are missing, but they still smell great.
I think that's a very good point. Stop and smell the roses. Don't get so focused on where we're going or what we need. Take a little bit of time to stop and digest where we're at and what we have. With that, what do you think right now about the whole MUT situation, specifically the offensive line? Everybody loading up on bronze offensive linemen. What do you think that's done right now to just the MUT experience in general? And I know you're into the competitive gaming part of it. Has it played any role in that yet, or do you think it will?
I think it's showing itself right now. I think they're looking into that possibly, but I think when Madden Bowl comes around, I don't think you're going to see full bronze lineups. The run game is too important to these tournaments right now for salary cap ranked. The Madden Bowl is based on salary cap ranked, and yeah, you get a really good bunch of skill players. But if your offensive line is bronze, and with the heat that some of these guys can bring, I think you're going to start seeing some guys realize they're going to need at least a couple of tackles in that as well. You might be able to get away with one or two bronze players on the line, but I would not be surprised if we see that Madden Bowl without the bronze offensive line issue that we're starting to see now with everybody trying to get to that top 64.
Yeah, a lot of people are panicking, and it is it's one of those things that can be frustrating, for the average guy trying to get on and play MUT salary, when they're able to tank their offensive line and they've got these 93 overall elites littered throughout that are, 400,000 or 500,000 coins apiece. It kind of makes it hard for the average guy to feel like they can jump in and compete without spending a lot of money. But along that way, you have so many different options now, with the seasons coming back and draft champs, which surprisingly, I would have thought that the same issue was in draft champs that was in MUT ranked. And I haven't experienced that at all. It seems to get, decent pressure with regular guys. And if you don't have linemen, they can get eaten up. I'm not sure why that happened. I don't think Clint's figured it out yet. But have you experienced that at all? Have you played draft champs? Or I know franchise doesn't really have that problem. Have you experienced it in any of the other modes how it hasn't really had the same impact that the salary cap has as far as the offensive line?
I've taken a bronze, or what would be a bronze offensive line, into open practice mode. This is offline, obviously not in MUT or anything. And there's been a differentiation in terms of pass rush, even on basic 4-man pass rush. That's not saying it won't be effective, but again, I think this is a lot of people that are really going heavy into salary cap because the Madden Classic was based on draft champions. So now everybody is essentially restarting, trying to get these salary cap ranked teams going, even like guys like Problem Right, one of the best players in the world, who has come out and started saying he was one of the first ones to bring this to light in terms of major guys to bring this to light with the bronze offensive line. He's completely restarting his MUT team for salary cap ranked. He was completely focused on draft champs. He sold his entire team to rebuild a salary cap ranked. I still think this is extremely early and something that will be labbed against. Like if some guys coming in, because you'll know the teams coming in, unlike the draft champions ranked, where they draft the teams before the tournament, you'll know guys' salary cap ranked teams coming into this tournament, and you'll know who has the bronze offensive lines, and you'll know who you can send the heat against. I just think it's early. That's what it is. It will be labbed against at some point.
Right. Well, and like you said, a lot of guys are speaking up on it. Eventually, they're going to figure it out, and more than likely, it'll be figured out by the Madden Bowl. Doesn't really help the guys that like to enjoy it right now, but it's one of those things that kind of happens. It's unfortunate. It actually kind of brings up another point, though, and I don't know if Problem was the first one, is the one that experienced this in the Madden Classic, but there was a couple of instances, I think, where somebody did like some kind of play action and the quarterback like stopped, like kind of paused, and it created an issue where I believe they got pressure, maybe fumbled it. I don't remember the specifics of it, but within a couple of weeks after the Madden Classic, it was already patched. We just got the update. I think it was yesterday, possibly, and they already fixed it. And there was one other one that I think that popped up with the Madden Classic. And of course, the thing that comes up in the community is when they see something like that is, oh well, it's all about MUT. What if it's not in MUT, it doesn't really matter. What is your personal opinion on that? What do you think about the focus on MUT and the constant flow of updating and new stuff from MUT versus what you get in other modes, franchise and otherwise?
Well, let's talk about specifically the two bugs that were fixed in this past update that were supposedly quote unquote MUT bugs. They were gameplay bugs that affected CFM too. They were known gameplay bugs that were found out because MUT players, what it was if you were in a play action shotgun pass and you hot routed your running back and then motioned him out, the quarterback would freeze. This was a known bug. It happened to D Jones in the championship game. Theoretically, D Jones knew about this, and while he was going through his progression of his play, forgot the bug, and that's what happened. And unfortunately, it ended up in a fumble recovery for 6. So it had a major impact on the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
It was fixed recently because they knew about it before. They were already trying to fix it. They weren't fixing it because the Madden Bowl's coming up. They didn't fix it because it was in the Madden Classic. It was just something they knew about. It's one of the few gameplay bugs remaining. It was just coincidental that it happened in the Madden Classic, and now it's fixed.
Right.
So that being said, and I know a couple of people have come out, especially recently in the last couple of days, in terms of saying that MUT gets more attention than CFM. The problem with that is MUT gets constant content updates that are planned before the season. Naturally, MUT is going to get more content because that is where content is available. You can't add cards to franchise mode.
Right.
And all they're doing is adding cards. That is not that tough outside of getting the visual packages for the cards together and, making sure they're balanced right with the ratings. But a lot of that is done either before the season or as the season goes on. They have plans, like these Team of the Week cards. Everyone's like, well, they're putting these ratings together. No, they know they have a program. They have a function on saying, all right, this is what he did. This is his previous card. This is how we're going to upgrade it. So they know ratings wise, that's not that tough. So these content updates they got head-to-head seasons. Okay, that again was just, and they can play friends in salary cap now. Well, that was one thing that Jake Stein just had to turn on. Matt Marco said, yeah, go ahead and turn it on. There was an exchange that happened over Twitter, and Jake said, okay, we'll turn it on. I don't know what franchise mode you can do to just turn things on. Franchise mode is so complex. And my problem with thinking that MUT gets all of that is that we got a ton of stuff in franchise mode this year. There was a ton of updates to franchise mode, and that just goes completely looked over because MUT's getting updates in the middle of the season. I'm not sure what you could ask to add to franchise mode that could be added mid-season like that.
You make, that's a really good point as far as MUT being pre-planned ahead of time, and a lot of it just being content updates. I think that's something a lot of people don't realize or don't spend a lot of time thinking about. Is it's a lot easier to do that than, like you said, add a new feature or something to franchise mode. And hey, I didn't know that it was just something they could turn on as far as playing friends and salary cap rank. That's great. We saw that the other day. Like, hey, I'd love to play that. It's a lot easier, especially with guys in the sim community like we are that want to play more of a regular version of MUT, but something outside of our leagues, and that's a really cool feature. And again, I think the seasons mode has been asked about since they announced that it wasn't coming back. So I think they were working on that anyway. So it wasn't like, okay, all of a sudden, after the Madden Classic, all of a sudden here we're adding some new modes. It was just kind of something that they took out that people really strongly wanted back, and so they worked on that. Yeah, people just kind of forget about that stuff. I do think though, one of the things that really bothers people as far as franchise is just some of the bugs that haven't been addressed. We've gotten a lot of updates, and we've had a lot of gameplay issues resolved, and there has been some updates to MUT, but there are a lot of little things in franchise mode that are persistent, like the kick return and punt return stats that just kind of disappear and don't. I was just looking at my stats. We just entered our season. I keep them in a spreadsheet just so I can look back, and I'm like, there's no point in even putting these in there because they're like only a few of the kick returns actually got recorded. Obviously we didn't have daddy leagues for a long time, and they were working on the companion app, and now with the companion app out in its current state, we don't have access to look at stats and stuff like that through an app. Obviously, if you use daddy leagues, you can. I think stuff like that is where franchise people, and honestly, both of us deal in a lot of franchise people because we're into the sim community, and I know you stream a lot of franchise stuff, so we typically get that, and a lot of people we interact with are franchise guys. And when you go through a season and you see all those little bugs and you notice them throughout and they don't get addressed, and then you look at something like MUT, it can kind of throw you off a little bit, and it kind of makes you think, man, are they really concerned about us? You have a lot more insight than I do, and you've been a part of a lot more of that stuff. What's your take on that as far as the app and what relatively small amount of updates that we've gotten as far as fixing bugs and stuff like that for franchise versus the other modes?
The app specifically was a misstep on the A's part. The app should have been out at the beginning of the season. We can't speak to bugs, what they were trying to fix with that. And from what we understand, this app is going to be more full-fledged as it goes. There will be updates to the app, maybe to like you said, see statistics inside the app, maybe to be able to make moves, trades, cuts, that kind of stuff. Things we'd want to see in the app that we could do on the website. That was a misstep on EA's part that it looks like they're trying to make right. That being said, statistical problems in CFM, it depends on how hard it is to fix. Like I said, most of the stuff we're seeing in MUT right now is not bug fixes, it's planned content. And yes, it's a ton of planned content. Don't get me wrong on that. When you put CFM and MUT next to each other, the list for MUT is huge. The list for CFM is okay. I'm not going to say it's small because it's not. They have been updating it, and I know for a fact that there is a commitment to making that franchise mode better. But like things like the punt bug right now, if the computer punts into the wind, it's always a low punt. Mm-hmm. We don't know what that is, but they've come out and said that they don't know they're working on it. They don't know about what the bug is. At some point, like the quarterback accuracy slider, there may be a bug in it. Clint said they're looking into it, but again, how long does that bug take to fix? When you're putting MUT up, the big long list of MUT, planned content, not bugs. This is not things that they have to put QA or development time onto. This is, hey, well, this is stuff we planned 3 months ago. It's ready to go. We're just turning it on so that way MUT has something to do the entire year.
Right.
Franchise mode, what franchise mode is right now is, like you said, bug fixes, to where they've got to go through and say, okay, how much development time towards the next game can we put into this? Because this is not something we were expecting. This is something that popped up afterwards. So again, it's more, you have to pick and choose what you can and can't fix, as opposed to planned content that you have ready to go for MUT.
Right. It's definitely a strange animal. And it's kind of two different animals, really. like you said, it's all plain content on MUT, and people see that stuff and don't realize that it's a lot easier to do that when you're just adding new cards than it is to go in and fix bugs. You kind of know that process a little bit, and kind of understand. Give us an idea of what it's like, from what you know. If you get a bug in a franchise, you have basically, they've said it's like an 8-month dev cycle for a game. So we're going to assume that the first 3 months, 4 months of release is fixing existing things, trying to get the current game, finding things that you hadn't found through QA or whatever. And then the next 8 months or so is basically putting all the features into the new one. There has to be some crossover on it, because if something big pops up in the game that they weren't expecting, they obviously have to fix it, especially with the competitive scene. So then, trying to balance all of that and say, okay, well, we got this new game coming out. We want to work on that. We want to get all these new features into it, but then we're still trying to fix certain things in the old game. And, people are wanting this mode, and we want to try to appease them and add something in, like we got last year with Draft Tramps Ranked, and I think Salary Camp Rank. That all came during the season last year. What do you know about the development process, and how do they try to balance all that? And what are some of the hiccups that that they encounter while trying to do all that?
Well, we just talked about the franchise app, the mobile app.
Right.
That obviously ran into a huge bug, because they wouldn't have taken the website down and announced the app in August if it wasn't going to be out within 30 days.
Right.
So for the most part, that's a huge bug. And that's the problem with this, is whenever you institute a new feature, you run into bugs. The things that the big moments that they instituted into franchise this year, where it makes it more streamlined on signing and trading and that kind of stuff. All of those things, when you add features like that, have to be completely play tested. Even this year, they had a beta test. It was a closed beta test, but to my understanding, it was fairly large, the user base that got it. It wasn't just game changers. They brought in some community members to test it as well. So there was a closed beta test that included not only online, it included some of the franchise mode as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something they'll add on to as it goes. Maybe even something like NHL did this year. Remember, NHL had an EASHL complete open beta for about a week or two. I wouldn't mind seeing something like that with Madden, where they say, hey, here's not a full-fledged game. We'll give you certain features that we need tested. Everyone can test it, and we'll get that feedback, because NHL this year was the least of all the games in terms of bugs. And a lot of that, has to be said, was because of that open beta test and how many people provided feedback on that. So I'd love to see that. That's the one thing in the development cycle I'd like to see, is them maybe open the beta test up for just a larger testing base, because everyone always makes the joke that, hey, the QA team, what do they do? And well, the QA team works their butts off. We don't know how big it is, but you're never going to get as much. Like, 100-person QA team is never going to see as much as 3 million people playing it on, opening launch day.
Right. Well, and another thing that gets lost, if you look at the credits on Madden, there are literally like at least 100 people that they have listed for QA. So it's quite lengthy. But they also have to test a lot of things that the average user would never go in and test, because they got to make sure that it works right. And testing different functions and features, they got to test every little button and everything and try to make it work. So, that takes away some of the regular gameplay time that we see. I was actually part of the beta this year, and from what I understand, I want to say that they said there was like 100 or 200 people, something like that. And I know Rex has mentioned that he wants to expand it, but with Madden being kind of the flagship brand, the corporate aspect of EA is concerned that if they put the game out in an unfinished state, and a large group of people are able to do that and record footage and whatever goes on, they're kind of worried about what's going to go on with that. However, I think you have to, because 100, 200, however many of us there were working on the beta. I mean, I spent pages and pages of feedback trying to help fix bugs, and from what I understand, I helped get quite a few, but yet the run pass glitch was still in there, and I don't know if it was in the beta or if it's something they did afterwards, but stuff like that slips through. So the only way I think they really, like you said, with NHL, the least bugs, the only thing you can do, I mean, you see the huge one that Destiny did a couple of years ago, there's been a lot of really big betas that have come out and really helped some games. And it's corporate, it's EA, they're publicly traded, and, they have to answer to the board of investors, and they have a lot of things that they have to worry about. But, man, if you could get a couple thousand people even doing a beta and all testing these kind of things out, I think it would go a long way in helping a lot of these problems that we see at release and alleviating a lot of these concerns and frustrations that people have. One more thing I want to get to before we let you go. We're going to switch and kind of go back to the MUT angle again. We talked about the competitive landscape, and one of the things that popped up in the Madden Classic was one of the guys, and I don't know who it is, and I don't know if I would say it even if I did. I'm not really here to call him out, just looking for ways that we can improve the game and improve the experience. But one of the guys got down, and apparently he was trying to use the swerve to get catches and try to get points back. Apparently, I think he scored once or twice, but it was the only time he was able to score. He even, I guess, tried a couple other known glitches or exploits, just in a desperation attempt not to lose. For the people out there that know what it is, it's not a real good look. But then on the flip side of it is, people say it's competitive Madden, it's in the game, do whatever you can to win. Here's something that kind of follows that scene. What is that kind of looked at on that scene when there's things like swerve or other glitches that are known that people use and exploit in something like that? Is that something that's frowned upon? And is there anything that you can really do about it if it's going to be in the game?
If you have something that is in the game, you have to use it. They're playing for big money. And I don't like that. I would never do that if I'm playing for somebody, against somebody. But if you're playing for $30,000, you're going to do it. That's just the way it is. It's up to the game to fix that. The game development team to fix that. And they've come out and said they have something for the swerve. That the swerve will hopefully not be an issue by the Madden Bowl.
I had heard that. That's good.
Yeah, Rex was making comments about that they're looking into the swerve and will hopefully have it fixed soon. The swerve glitch didn't show itself in the Madden Classic that much, which is surprising. I do know that you will get looked down upon in the competitive community if you are using something that is not counterable. If you're using something that there is no counter for. Like last year, Problem used the fullback dive to work his way all the way through the Madden Challenge and then lost. This is the key thing. He lost in the championship because there was a defense for it. Serious Mo had a defense for it. And that's why it's okay to use that kind of stuff. The fullback dive was overpowered, but there is a counter for it. As long as there is a counter for whatever they're doing, it's fine. As soon as you get something that's not counterable, like the swerve is... I'm not going to say the swerve is because I've seen some counters, but not out of all the formations. Like there are specific formations that can't counter it. Like I said, as long as it's still counterable, it's good. If there's something that's not counterable that the game cannot, you literally cannot stop, then that's where it becomes an issue. And again, you can use it. There's not a rule against it, but you are going to be pretty much looked at as the kid that's using the swerve. I know people use the swerve to get to the Madden Classic.
But then they kind of take it out of their game when they're amongst all their peers. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I don't even know if it's that. I think people just started sending, they didn't really send heat. I don't know why we didn't see it more in the Madden Classic. Like I saw a couple attempts at it in the Madden Classic, but I didn't see anyone complete one on stream. That being said, I did see attempts at it, so you never know. I don't know if it was something that people found counters for. I've heard that there still is not a counter for it, so I wouldn't understand why it wasn't the Madden Classic unless there was something said that said, "Hey, don't do this." I don't know that was said. I don't know that I would ever think EA would go to any of their gamers and say, "Listen, you cannot do this." But I mean, we didn't see it as much as we thought we were going to. So.
I was actually surprised at the diversity in the gameplay. It was night and day different from last year. And so, whether it was some kind of rules put in there, behind the scenes that we didn't know about, or it was just a code of ethics, among the players, that, you don't do certain things. Whatever it was, it looked a lot better. And, there's still a lot of similar things going on, but, Rex had said last year on I don't remember whose or stream it was or whatever. I think it was Sim Football Critic, but he said, his goal is to make competitive Madden look like football on Sunday. And we're not quite there yet, but if you watch the Madden Classic, we're definitely moving a lot closer in that direction. We are going to wrap up with that. I don't want to keep you too long. I appreciate you stopping by and chatting with me for a little bit and giving us some insight on the Madden community. What do you have going on? Is there anything that you want to share with people? Let them know how to find you or what you got going on that they might find interesting.
Nope, just operationsports.com that's where we talk all our sim sports at. But other than that, just follow us on Twitter so you can see you, me, and everybody else arguing with each other.
we definitely get in. Me and you haven't really argued about anything yet, and this one was probably a lot more docile than it's going to be when I get Smitty on here and we talk about some of the things that he's been going on. But I think it's definitely worth a follow for me and Millennium and the Sim Standard guys and NYKia and Grafster. So we definitely have some colorful debates on there. So it's definitely a lot of fun. And again, I appreciate you for stopping by and taking a few minutes. I could probably talk to you for several hours. So if you don't mind, if you want to come back later on and maybe around the Madden Bowl or something like that, we get some more stuff. Definitely enjoy chatting with you and picking your brain. So if you're up for that, I am. Always a pleasure to talk to you and hear your insight on things.
Oh, absolutely. I'll come back anytime you want. This was awesome.
All right, great. Well, thanks for you stopping by. And again, we appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to the inaugural episode of PX1 Sports Radio. For more, you can find us on Twitter at PX1 Sports and on the World Wide Web at PX1Sports.com. We appreciate you listening. We hope you tune in often, and we will see you next time.